Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Academy podcast here on Anfield Index. There's a Premier League title race ongoing, there's a cup final at Wembley on the horizon, and a huge task in the Champions League as the draw was made earlier. But we're taking a break from all that today, kind of taking a break from all that stress. And we're going to talk about the Academy, a bit more of a light-hearted kind of topic. And I do enjoy doing these shows to kind of get away from all that stress of the constant first team talk. But I'm joined again by Lewis Sport to talk all things Academy. How are you doing, Lewis?
Yeah, not bad, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, same old. But yeah, I guess there's only one place to really start. Really, I mean, it was the big news for the first team, not just the academy on deadline day, and that was Jayden Danns going to Sunderland, wasn't it? I mean, first of all, I know we spoke about it briefly in the last one, but what's your thoughts on Sunderland as a move for him? I think it's quite a good one.
Yeah, it's interesting. On first glance, it didn't spring as a destination that I would send him to, mainly
Yeah,
because he wouldn't be first choice. He wouldn't be guaranteed minutes. But looking into the way that the squad is built and how Sunderland play, it may play to his strengths. It's definitely an interesting one. I don't think I can really recall a player that has gone out on loan injured to join at the back end of the season. And we'll see how he's on in terms of minutes. But at the end of the day, he can join a promotion chasing side. We've seen young players get caught up in relegation fights. Maybe they've shown less trust, being able to dig in those environments. Um, but he's joining a side with a lot of momentum, and he doesn't have the pressure of being the main man at there. He's going to be Wilson Isidore, I believe his name is. It
yeah,
seems to be a great young striker.
yeah,
And so he joins there with no pressure. Um, and Sunderland, I do think they're quite flexible in the formation. They can play with two up top. And in terms of, maybe it's a bit hypocritical of me to mention uh, clubs not trusting young players in a relegation fight. It's going to be a big call to throw him in the deep end if they are chasing promotion. And we do need those points, and we need somebody to step up. But Dan's looks like he's got the personality for that. I think we spoke before about how the air of confidence is to be admired, but just the way he speaks in his interviews, the way he takes his goal, like the chipped goal against Southampton last season, I think just shows
yeah,
what he's all about. And we'll see how he gets on. I think his style of play does lend himself to playing with another striker up top as well. How he likes to drop deep, create space for other players. So I think overall it's a good one, if not just to get, especially considering the circumstances with his injury. It's good that a team are still willing to take a chance on that and allow him to be part of the squad. Considering the injury, it'd probably be next season where we're looking for him to take those big strides into men's football. And there's going to be a lot of change in the first team, depending on what you read. Um, so we'll see how he gets on in pre-season. I suppose the Sunderland move, it's a good one, I would say.
yeah. It's an interesting one. I guess it's a credit to him, the kind of ability and potential he has that Sunderland still went through with it after kind of discovering about the injury. And just a little bit on the injury. I mean, it seems like it's a recurring issue. Is it from? It seems similar to what he missed pre-season with. I could be completely wrong with that, but is that kind of what we're hearing?
Yeah, it looks that way. Yeah, I believe it was like a back injury, but even in his first season as a scholar, he missed a little bit of football as well. He didn't initially start with his scholarship group. They played a front three of Coney Doherty, Doak, and Kumas, which is a great front three at that level. But yeah,
Yeah,
he wasn't always in the team there, and he missed a bit of time through injury then as well. He shot up from where he was in terms of height, so it's definitely one to keep an eye on. But his father's a professional footballer. I think he might still be playing non-league, to be fair. So he definitely knows. At Liverpool, he's got the best facilities to look after himself, anyways. But his father and those around him do seem to be on top of things and well informed, and I'm sure he'll sort these issues out if it is to be one that's recurring. I think Liverpool actually do. If we're looking for some positivity, they do have to be commended in recent years in how well they've managed to rehabilitate players who have had big injuries, and we've got the obvious ones in like Van Dijk, players like that. But even going younger, we've got like the Cade Gordon, for him to spend the amount of time that he did out injured and being able to come back to a semi good level. He was nearly 18 months out injured. The likes of Tom Hill, he missed so much time of injury, and he managed to get back to a decent enough level to earn himself a move away. So I do think the Liverpool medical team are doing well in that regards at the moment. So hopefully Danns can get some time before the end of the season.
Yeah. I guess the one worry for me is that with the way Sunderland season's going, he is going to be thrown in the deep end. It's going to be intense games, but that's kind of what the youngsters need, isn't it? It's kind of, and like we say, he's got the mindset to deal with it. And you touched on Coney Doherty there. Obviously, the Plymouth game has happened since we last spoke as well, and he was involved briefly in that. Just a quick kind of, what do you think about the performances of the young players in there? I think that was kind of one of the main positives, really. Or
Yeah,
only
I think.
positives.
Yeah. I think Conor Doherty, like given the circumstances and what he actually contributed on the pitch, might have been one of the better performers in terms of the expectation level.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm biased towards the academy, but in terms of the player himself, I was told from that as good a source as you can get that there was interest in taking him on loan in January, but obviously he's decided to stay with the club, and I think he's really coming of age this season. We spoke earlier about those around him, his age mates. He feels like he's quite young, and maybe it's to do with like his physique. He seems like he's one of the younger players in compared to his age mates. His birthday is later on in the year, to be
Yeah.
fair, but the likes of Doak, Danns, and Kumas are all out on loan playing men's football, and I feel like he must look at that and think, oh, that's a step I need to take. And I think especially in the UEFA Youth League this season, he's really stepped up. Some of the performances from him here, I think against Stuttgart, he was unbelievable. And he was a senior attacker in that lineup. And for the summer, for sure, he's definitely going to take the plunge and move out on loan. And this season, he's played out more on the right as opposed to the left. Which is his natural position. It's just adding strings to his bow. I think he actually seems a better player out on the right, maybe where he doesn't have to think as much, and his game's a bit more simplified. And his best traits aren't necessarily those that are on the ball. He's got the instincts of a forward, of a pure forward. He's so good at getting in and around the box, the running in behind, especially from out to in, especially from the right hand side. He's a good player, and yeah, seeing those people around him doing well he must be the next one to go on loan.
Yeah. And just uh, two players are out on loan. You mentioned one of them there, Kumas. There was a report, I think it might have actually been after the window closed, that Sheffield United are looking at him, and I think it was Owen Beck as well. If they got promoted, making permanent moves for them. Obviously, we'll start with Kumas. How's his progress been out on loan? Every time I've looked, he seems to be doing quite well. And do you think he could be ready for a permanent move away in the summer?
Well, we've seen how Liverpool are moving at the minute in terms of there was talk. We spoke about in the first podcast that we did, and how Liverpool seem to be more willing to sell those academy assets rather than blood them in. Not every player can be blooded in, so it could be something that's on the cards in the summer for sure. He's at the age where maybe the window is now to break into the first team, if not.
Yeah.
But in terms of Kumas himself, we speak about experiences out on loan. He's played under three different managers at Stoke, so that does bode incredibly well for him. That all three managers have fancied him in the side, this is like in the Championship, and especially Mark Robbins. Seems to be a very well regarded coach and did great at Coventry, and the fact that he likes him is a good sign. Um, like I say, I think a permanent move could be on the cards for him. It won't be a surprise. And I think he deserves to be playing week in, week out. Is that going to be possible at Liverpool? Probably not next season. Could there be another loan to maybe a promotion chasing championship side
Yeah,
potentially? But I think they will be interested in on a permanent move. Is a player that you can look to develop, and he's got a relatively good ceiling, I would say. Um, I imagine that even if I saw it was if Sheffield United get promoted, that they'd be interested in. But even if they don't, he could really next season after a season of Championship football under his belt, he could really be an asset for one of those promotion chasing sides.
yeah, definitely. And Owen Beck's kind of one that's kind of went under the radar a little bit. I don't know whether it's just because he's a defender maybe and doesn't score the goals. But how's he been doing at Blackburn? He's at, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So it's hard when you cover defenders really because you want to talk about them, but the their moments aren't
Yeah,
necessarily coverage worthy. You're not going to tweet Owen Beck's just made a
yeah,
great tackle, or maybe you are. I don't know. But yeah, he seems to be starting week in week out at Blackburn. Um, Over a very good left back in Harry Pickering, I believe, who's a good player in his own right.
yeah,
And Owen Beck is, I say Owen Beck's. So it's a weird one, but I think he's a great example for any young footballer who's looking to break through. That he's constantly dealt with setbacks, you would say. So when he broke into the under-18 team, he was deemed too small. He actually dropped back into the under-16s, um, which you are allowed to do. Just a fun little fact. In your first scholarship year, you can drop back into the under-16. The under-16 side can have up to five first-year scholars, I believe, playing in the lineup. So those players who we don't see getting game time at under-18 level straight away, that's where they'll be getting their minutes. It's actually what happened to Jayden Danns as well when he was playing back front three.
yeah,
So it's interesting. So yeah, Owen Beck was deemed too small. He dropped back in. Went on to become one of the leading players in the academy. You would say him and Conor Bradley as fullbacks was great to watch. And you can see in his
yeah,
playing style the work ethic that he puts in. Is such a sling fullback, the way he plays, the way he powers through the pitch, and yeah, then you look at his loans at the Famalicão and Bolton, the unideal, and you're thinking, right, do we need to take a step down? But then he goes to Scotland's team of the season, in their league, and he's been called up to the Wales squad, and he's doing really well at Blackburn in a very unforgiving league, you would say.
yeah,
Um, so I think that looking at that, it's a great character reference if for a club to start look at signing him. When we look at those facts, if he doesn't hit the ground running, he's definitely going to put the work in to get where he needs to be. And I'm not surprised that there's interest in him. He's a great player. He's got great delivery on his left foot. And like I say, I'm not too sure about Blackburn's league position. To be fair, but they might be relatively high up in the league themselves. Um, I could see him permanent interest in him again. He's a player who's getting a little bit older in academy terms, of course, and he
yeah,
does deserve to
yeah,
be playing week in week out. Although Liverpool, there is the left back situation at Liverpool in the summer. It does look like Liverpool might be looking to spend money there, though. You would probably think,
yeah.
and he deserves to be playing.
Yeah, I know Klopp was a big fan of him, wasn't he? So it'll be interesting to see what happens now the slots at the club. And just I know we said we wouldn't talk about the first team, but we're going to talk about. There's a couple of first team players, like academy graduates, I want to quickly talk about. Obviously, Tyler Morton's been really highly rated. He's picked up a pretty serious shoulder injury, I think, and it looks like he might be out for the season. So it looks like he might have played his last game for the club. I mean, I think we're all kind of assuming he's going to move on in the summer, isn't that sounds about right?
Yeah, yeah, and you have to be fair, really. I think for all the well handled players that Liverpool have nurtured and come through. I think this season, they've done Talamon a bit of a disservice. Really, he is a player who
Yeah,
had Champions League level teams interested in him, and he definitely he could play at that level. I'm not saying as a Champions League starting top team player, but the likes of Leipzig, who were noted to be interested in him, he definitely could be at least a squad player in that team. And he's a player who deserves to be playing again. He's got the minute. He's put the work in. He's got the minutes under his belt at Hull, at Blackburn, and unfortunately, it does look like Slot doesn't fancy him. We saw it. To be frank, it looks like McConnell's moved ahead of him in the pecking order. I think him starting that
Yeah,
PSV game said a lot, and I think he should go out and grab the minutes. I think he'll be an asset to a side in Europe, and I think it'll be a good experience for him as well. He does almost have a more European style, maybe in his expansive passing range. Um,
yeah.
uh, and yeah, it is a shame, but at the end of the day, it would be looked at as a success from the academy, a player that they've had since the pre-academy, and you'd expect he'd go for a fair bit of change, to be fair.
Yeah, and another player. I mean, he's not injured or anything, but obviously with Liverpool exiting the FA Cup, it's hard to see Kelleher getting any more minutes before he likely leaves in the summer as well. Obviously, Alisson could quite easily get injured with his record, but just how good has Kelleher been as like an academy graduate? I mean, it's about as good as an academy graduate as you're going to get unless you're kind of Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah, I think we've almost pushed our luck with Kelleher in terms of the
Yeah,
conversations of just one more season, one more season. He definitely could be playing week in, week out anywhere else. Not anywhere else. A good handful of clubs
yeah,
would definitely be interested in taking him. Maybe even the likes of Newcastle, somewhere like that, who seem to be looking for a goalkeeper. And it's been exemplary, really. Everyone who you speak to says that he's the loveliest of lads. He's actually a very intelligent player. And I think Liverpool are going to have some assets to sell this summer from the academy, really. We talk about PSR and whatnot. It looks like the timing he's fallen right for Liverpool. I think these are players that are good enough to attract interest, and I think a fair assessment would be on a number of these players would be that they're not going to be breaking into a first team. It's not guaranteed, so I think it would be understandable for those players to be cashing on. So I think it's actually a nice situation for Liverpool to be in. There's definitely a conversation to have with Harvey Elliott in the summer, who's yeah, it's a really interesting one. That one, but looks like Liverpool might be making some money this summer.
and there's one more kind of question I've got to put here is it's about Bajcetic because obviously he went out on loan and he's at Las Palmas now, and I think he scored the other night actually. Um, and you're kind of seeing now. I keep on talking about the first team. I said I wouldn't, but you're seeing with Gravenberch kind of getting tired. Do you think there's any sort of not regret, but it would be kind of handy to have him around? But then on the other hand, would he just be doing the role that Tyler Morton's kind of been handed at the minute? So I don't know. Do you think there's any kind of perhaps regret that they've let Bajcetic go out on loan?
I, I personally, I don't think so. As somebody
Yeah,
who's um, paid close attention to his career, I've watched him come through. I think at the end of the day, if he's not playing Endo in these situations, I don't think he's going to be playing
yeah,
Stefan Bajcetic either. And I think he's another one who the minutes would be a priority here. Um, and he seems to have had a decent enough start at Las Palmas. I've seen mixed reviews. A defensive
yeah,
midfielder's job is, although he scored the goal, maybe not his priority in terms of skill set. Um, it's very difficult to watch all these players all the time. So
yeah,
you've got to find what you can really. I was actually quite surprised that obviously football is a strange place. It's about environment and um, style, I suppose. But after not being able to make waves in really at Salzburg, that a La Liga team would jump in for him.
Yeah.
But there you go. He's obviously a very talented player. I remember watching him come through as a centre back, and he was very, very good there. I loved watching him as a centre back. Um, and yeah, I don't think he'd be getting even as many minutes as Endo in this side for Arne Slot. So I don't think it's very fair, but there are always reports about the punctuality and things like that. And Slot does seem to have very, very high standards, it seems. It's an interesting level of standards. Um, so how critical, I don't know if you saw what he said about Amar Nallo after the um, red card. It was
Yeah.
very, I'm not, I don't know, everyone has their own opinion. It was very damning, is what I would say. Um, Right, but at least he's
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is I've seen videos of this lad everywhere, and I've seen yourself tweeting about him a few times. I mean, I'm just going to ask a blunt question. Josh Abe, who is he, and kind of why should Liverpool fans perhaps be excited? I know he's still very, very young, but he's the one player that's kind of I've seen doing the rounds lately, and just kind of want to learn a bit more about him, really.
Yeah, so as a winger, I don't think his position is set in stone by any means. He's actually played as a striker recently. Um, Liverpool under 15s won the indoor pape tournament this year. Abe scored 9 goals in that. So it's definitely a forward to be excited about, but what I would definitely put a disclaimer on that
Yeah,
a lot of the players that you are told are good at under 15, under 16 level. So much changes in terms of growth. There are a
yeah,
couple. There are a couple I've been told about who are just no longer with the club. But so much changes. Um, he's recently in the England under 15 squad. Um, but Liverpool do have another player in that under 15 squad called Shadrach Ekugbo, played as a number 6. So there are definitely a couple of talents coming through. And what I would say is that Liverpool have been very good in the market at under 16 level. Just in the space before they signed the scholarship with the likes of Doak and Gamoa and Nioni. Um, but Liverpool have a couple of players coming through where I wouldn't at all be surprised if they were to be on the receiving end of players being sought after by other clubs. There are a couple of players that we've actually lost in recent years, but it seems to almost go under the radar. No one wants to talk about it. The likes of Ethan Ennis signing for Manchester United in the academy realms. That was a massive. That was a massive move. Obviously,
yeah,
somewhat controversial. He would have been Liverpool's best player, one of the best players at that level, and he was signed by United. Another one is Joe Belmont. 2 seasons ago, was given an offer by Brighton that he couldn't refuse. A talented striker is actually to be in training with the first team this season. Wasn't spoken about too much. And then one this year, I think is interesting. I don't really know the circumstances around the move at all. I don't know if it was Liverpool not doing enough to keep him, not wanting him, or he actually, or Sunderland actually stole him. But this summer, Sunderland signed a striker called Marcus Neal from Liverpool at scholarship level and is the top scorer in the under 18s. He's made his under 21 debut. And he looks like a proper striker. Like great in the box, and is it the kind of player what Liverpool don't really have at that group. And I think it's going to be interesting to watch his progress. He's actually the son of Lucas Neal, and Liverpool have had a couple of lads with famous father footballers. So Liverpool definitely are infallible to having players taken away from them. Is what I'm trying to say. And there are a couple of lads at under
yeah,
16 level or under 15 level who are making waves. There's a really interesting player I won't mention too much about him, but it's called Vincent Joseph. Um, and he's a German youth international, which is interesting at that level for a German youth international to be at Liverpool. He's an under 15 player who's made the step up to the under 16s, and England have shown an interest in him as well. He's been called up to one of those squads, so that just shows a level of talent there. I think he's a player to watch. Um, but we'll see. Next season we'll have Lamar Forrester, hopefully, as a scholarship player. He's a player that is in a very, very rare category of players that made the under 18s debut as an under 15 player. So we'll see. I try not to watch too many of these lads because, as I say, a lot changes. But there are a couple of under 16s to make the debut this season for the under 18s, and I was actually speaking to Aston Villa's national scout, and I don't mind talking about it because he has made his under 18 debut. But he told me one of his top picks of the under 16 group would be Cameron Williams, Scottish left back. Is a regular with the Scotland under 17s, a real attacking player. He's made his debut for the under 18s this season, and he's a player to watch out for. Can play on the left wing as well, played higher up. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there are any high profile departures this summer after a couple of years of real success in that area, you'd say.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. And as we always, it's important not to get too carried away with these players. They are still very, very young, but I just find them mental, the kind of the sheer talent that you have at that age these days. It's just getting more and more talented, it seems. But yeah, that's all we've got to really discuss today. Um, but yeah, thanks again for coming on, Lewis. If anyone hasn't checked Lewis out on Twitter, make sure you do it. There's no one better covering Liverpool's academy teams at the minute. Anything that you want to find out is on Lewis's Twitter, so definitely go and make sure to check that out. But yeah, thanks for listening, and keep a lookout for the next episode. We try and do it every month or so, just kind of like a roundup. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you again for listening.